here. Today's video is about crewed planetary spacecraft. By that I mean people go inside them and they have to go up and down on planets. So let's get started. A crewed spacecraft has to be both light and strong so that you can carry as much payload, crew, and supplies with you as possible to space. The spacecraft itself needs its own thrusters so it can maneuver while on orbit, as well as change its attitude. These are called RCS thrusters. They let the spacecraft spin to different orientations, especially for docking. It's very useful. Now the area the astronauts are in is called the pressure vessel. It looks like this. It's a big, usually metal, tube thing, and it has a hatch at one end and a docking port at the top. Now you need to be kept alive in space, and for that you have ECLSS, which is Environment Control and Life Support System. When you think of life support, you usually think of oxygen and CO2, which is carbon dioxide. On a spacecraft, you need the ability to remove excess carbon dioxide out of the spacecraft's atmosphere. There's equipment available now which can take the carbon dioxide and actually convert some of it back to oxygen, about 40%. They also have pressurized oxygen and nitrogen tanks to refill the air if they start running out of oxygen. However, life support systems are more than just oxygen and CO2. You need constant airflow around the spacecraft, otherwise when you breathe out, you just keep breathing out air until it forms a big bubble of carbon dioxide around your face. It's also useful to keep the temperature at a nice working temperature, and when we can control the atmosphere, we might as well control it to our liking. Then there's flight suits, which is what we wear to go up to space and come back down. A flight suit is not a spacesuit you can take outside because it's reliant on the internal systems of the spacecraft. Now you also need a toilet in space, obviously, for space pooping. The toilet uses airflow instead of gravity to make sure things are going in the right direction. Pee gets collected and processed back into drinking water. Astronaut Don Pettit loves saying, "Yesterday's coffee is today's coffee." Meanwhile, solid waste is treated for bacteria and odor, and then sort of packaged away and removed and disposed of by fire. Another important part that kind of still ties into life support is cooling. Cooling? What? Space is pretty cold, but it's kind of tricky. In space, it's a vacuum, and vacuums are a really good insulator, and that means you need to be able to get rid of the heat, otherwise you'll just keep heating up because you've got computers and you've got other systems on board. The only way you can lose heat in space is through radiation, which is a really slow process. It's easy to see a cooling system if you look at the ISS's radiator panels. They're massive, and they used to get rid of heat through the huge surface area they have. Now you also need a form of generating electric current so you can power all your fancy computers and stuff. You may have seen solar panels on a lot of spacecraft, and those are pretty self-explanatory, and they usually have really huge ones, especially if they're going to the outer solar system where there's less sun. But there's also things like radioisotope thermoelectric generators, which are like nuclear things that generate heat, and the heat can turn into electricity, and you can power things like the Curiosity rover, which, by the way, he's huge. There's actually another proposal at NASA for a mission that'll use one of these. It's a nuclear quadcopter on Saturn's moon, Titan. How cool is that? Okay, so you're in space. Great! How do we get back down again? The process of coming back to Earth, or to any body with an atmosphere, is called entry, descent, and landing, or EDL. But let's just start with the entry part. As you start hitting the atmosphere, all the air is going to come past your spacecraft, and your spacecraft is maybe going to start tumbling. Either your spacecraft will turn itself around, or the air will do it for you, because the big center of mass is at the bottom of the spacecraft, which is where your heat shield is, and that way the center of mass pulls itself around to the front. Usually you don't have to worry about that. Sometimes you do though, so that's why you need to install fins or wings onto your spacecraft in order to get it to ride itself. So I mentioned heat shields. Let's talk about how those work. You may have seen a system like the shuttle, which uses these heat tiles, which are really good insulators, so all the hotness is on one side and all the shuttle is on the other, and you don't want that to bleed through. The reason it's so hot as you come in is not because of friction actually, it's because all that air in front of you as you're going super fast is being compressed into a smaller space. There's a really high pressure. If you compress a gas into a smaller space, it has the same heat but in a smaller volume, which means it heats up in temperature. More traditional heat shields, like they were used on Apollo, are ones that ablate. Put simply, ablation is the process of having a bunch of stuff get hot, and when it gets hot, it flakes off and shoots somewhere else. What happens is all the hot stuff leaves your spacecraft, so your spacecraft is still cool. I mean, it does burn through, but as long as you have enough of it, it's okay. Sounds kind of bad if you want to reuse a spacecraft. I mean, this is why Shuttle didn't use it, but these days they've been making some pretty good advances, so only a little bit burns off every use. EDL, what's the second letter? D, descent. That's it. For descent, you're going to need a way of slowing down. The air is only going to do so much. I mean, on Mars especially, it's not going to do very much at all. It's commonplace to use a parachute at this point, like a lot of spacecraft do. because a parachute will slow you down really well. I mean, it's pretty heavy, you've got to pack that thing in, and if it doesn't work, you also need a backup parachute. But it's a tried and true method that'll really work if you need to get your spacecraft down slower. The other method is powered descent, which is coming down with engines to slow you down. Obviously this is riskier, but sometimes it might not be because you need to decide where you're landing. You don't want to land in the middle of nowhere and never be found. Now on the American side of things, there's 2 new spacecraft coming up. Hopefully this year. We got Boing, 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 Boing Boy. They're making a spacecraft called the Starliner. It's pretty neat and it launches on a super reliable rocket called the Atlas. It looks like this, and the flight suits look like this. Make of that what you will. On the other hand, we've got SpaceX with their Crew Dragon. They've been flying Dragons for quite a while and even reusing them, and they were all cargo vehicles. Anyway, its flight suit looks like this. That's pretty cool. It's a working spacesuit, guys. Anyway, if all goes well, this year is going to be an amazing one for crewed spaceflight. We're going to have 2 different providers, in the US at least, really ramping up their projects and doing lots more tests, and hopefully seeing crewed flights by the end of the year. It's going to be super awesome. So that's pretty much all you need in a spacecraft. Let me know in the comments if there's anything I missed. Thanks for watching. This has been Hayu. Bye!